Welcome to AutoScoop. It's everything you need to know about car buying. And now, here's Adam Goldfein and Joyce Littell.
But you know what, Adam, I said it earlier, I really, I just don't say it because of the show, but I really get very excited when I hear the dealerships that come on this show that really tailor to the needs of the people.
Right.
So, I mean, it's very exciting because they know what people are going through, but yet and still, we need to ride.
You know, and people go through an awful lot. I mean, you know,
Yeah.
the cool thing is we can try to bring the deals to you. We really appreciate Bickerstaff for coming on the show because they're
Definitely.
bringing something special to you, just like all of our guests that we try to bring every week. We also, at the same time, want to bring other information and resources, and that's why we've invited Richard Griffin back, and welcome to the show, Richard. It's great to have you here, as always, because I always leave going like, wow, you know, I didn't know that. Don't you feel like that?
Very excited. I mean, when I saw him come in, I was like, oh, okay, I know we're going to get into something also that people definitely need information on, and that's in the insurances and the legal side of everything.
It's great to be here. I tell you, I really enjoy both of you, and this show is tremendous. I tell you, that last guest, I tell you, I need to go out and buy a car with those kind of prices. I tell you, that's amazing.
Well,
That
he
is
makes
amazing.
it pretty easy when there is no price, right?
Right,
And
right.
they're giving it away. But you know, I wanted to talk to you about something that is kind of near and dear to our hearts, especially in the V103 family, and a lot of the folks that we've been affected by. And you would think it's kind of uncommon, but it seems that it's become extremely common. And what I want to refer to is brain injuries.
Ooh.
And I told you, so we're going to throw you for a loop. Okay, I mean, something people don't think about, you know, God forbid they get into an accident. We know how common accidents are. There's almost 400,000 accidents a year just in Atlanta. You know, forget, you know, the millions of people injured around the country. But if you could shed some light on that, I'd really appreciate it.
I handle, you know, all personal injury, wrongful death, and the most tragic ones are, of course, the wrongful death and these brain injury cases where lives are just completely shattered, where people can't continue to be the parent or the spouse. You know, a lot of times their personality changes. Sometimes they even die. I was amazed that there are actually 1.5 million Americans every year that suffer from traumatic brain injuries. 1.5 million. That means that there's a traumatic brain injury every 15 seconds.
Oh my goodness.
Do you
Make you want to stop driving.
No, but think about that. Now,
Every 15
Richard,
seconds.
what causes that? I mean, if you get into an accident, a lot of times we think about like a whiplash or something like that. So what could cause a traumatic brain injury in a motor vehicle accident?
Well, there's two different kinds of brain injury that can often occur. One is from actual hard trauma to the skull where the brain is struck and damaged. And when cars collide at great speeds, you know, metal crashes, glass breaks, and you can be thrown around. If you aren't wearing your seatbelt, you can be thrown through the windshield. So that's one of the main ways, is to have actual head trauma. There's another kind that when you're involved in a serious accident or collision, you get thrown around and your brain actually is shifted around at a high speed inside your skull, and there's actually a second impact where the brain hits the skull or the bone. And that is a secondary type of injury that can kill brain cells and nerve endings and cause the brain to have permanent damage.
So when you're practicing and you're getting these cases, which one do you see most of? Do you see the severity in the first one, the first description you have, or someone whose brain have shifted and because of the impact might not have been as great, but yet it affected their brains?
Well, that's a good question. They are usually diagnosed accurately and quickly when there's trauma to the brain. When you have a fractured skull from an impact, they're going to be taken into the emergency room. Those doctors are going to do CT scans and brain MRIs, and they're going to find that problem. The secondary impact of the skull shifting in the brain, where there may not be any outside trauma to the skin, is one that's often overlooked. Those individuals may, even if they have a brain MRI, a lot of times it's not going to show up as being abnormal until much later.
So let me ask you a question. Somebody gets into, God forbid, a terrible car accident, but they're wearing their seatbelt. So I don't want to talk about yet the motorcycle guy who is riding without the helmet, or God forbid gets thrown from a motorcycle. That's pretty obvious. You know, his head's going to hit, or her head will hit whatever they land on. But you're wearing a seatbelt, and what you're basically saying is you're getting moved around so violently that your brain on the inside is hitting the skull, right?
Correct.
So what happens, like after the accident? Do they feel nauseous, or what are the symptoms that somebody who maybe was involved in an accident may say, you know what, I need to get some medical care. I may have a problem bigger than merely a fender bender.
Right. Well, to answer your question, if someone is knocked unconscious, if they lose consciousness, then there is going to be a real likelihood of some type of brain injury. Some are mild, some are more severe, but that is a real sign. Also, being nauseated, vomiting, those are things that if they occur, there's going to be there's a high likelihood of a brain injury. You've got dizziness, you've got irritability, you've got being blurred vision.
But you're saying this is a very common side effect of motor vehicle accidents.
It is. It is. Now, again, it's not going to be as common as soft tissue injuries where you have a sprain to the neck or back. But if those symptoms are there, and if they don't resolve, then it's very, very important to get additional treatment. See a neurosurgeon or a neurologist or a psychiatrist or a psychologist to treat. Because some of those things are going to be symptoms that just don't go away, even if you checked out okay at the ER.
Now, what if you were in an accident and you don't get any of those symptoms until maybe 3-4 days to a week later? What do you do about that?
Well, the most important thing is to make sure that you get the medical treatment you need, that you tell the doctors the problem you're having. A lot of times people delay going to the doctor.
Right.
They may not tell the doctor all the problems because they figure, well, maybe it'll go away. If you're litigating a case and those things are not documented early on, then it can be a real problem.
And Joyce, that is by far the best question, I think, of this whole scenario. I mean, I just had a friend who was involved in an accident last week. And in fact, I told him to call Richard. And the thing was, she's like, no, I'm fine. And I'm sitting there telling my wife, I don't want to hear I'm fine. Have her call him, and then we'll figure out, did she get the right setup?
Right.
So when we come back, if we can, Richard, I want you to address, what do you do after the accident when you're not sure of the injuries?
Because a lot of people I have seen, even in passing an accident, you see them just get up and walk away and might not know this is the thing to do. So please stay with us. I tell you, when you hear Richard Griffin talk about the numbers and the number of accidents and cases that he's had to try, you just got to be thankful that you personally haven't experienced, that. But the thing is, of people that has. And I think the biggest thing for our viewers is to know, if you're in an accident, what are the procedures, whether it's as severe as a brain injury, because if it's a brain injury, somebody is coming, and then you got to take care of that. But if it's a fender bender or any of the kind, what are the procedures?
Well, that's a great question. The first thing that you should do if you're in an accident and you have any injuries at all is to go right to the emergency room. You go to the emergency room, they are trained to treat trauma. They're going to do the tests. They have the MRI machines that can do brain MRIs, neck, cervical, lumbar MRIs. They can find out if you have a herniated disc. They can find out if you have a broken back. I have a intake coordinator who works for me that 6 years ago had an accident, and he's still having problems. Now, the accident was his fault, so he didn't have a personal injury claim, but he just now got diagnosed with the fact that he had broken his back in 2 places.
Wow.
So he has been in pain all this time and not really, just thinking he just needed to take more Advil, and in reality, he had a broken back in 2 different places.
Now, I'm sorry, what if when you go to the emergency room and you think that your injury is not that severe, and they didn't do an MRI, can you request just yourself, knowing that I've seen you on this show, and if I'm in an accident, I can say, well, Richard Griffin said, I need to have these sort of things, because if they don't think that it's necessary, will they not do it, or just do it anyway because you've gone into emergency?
Well, certainly as a lawyer, they're not going to, I'm not going to be able to order up any tests for anyone, so that won't pull any weight for them. But if you request it,
when you're lying there and you don't hear them or know that they've taken an MRI,
right,
and then weeks later something starts to happen and it wasn't done when you were in the emergency room, then that's where the problem starts.
Every hospital's different. Some are going to be very aggressive with their tests, and they're going to check you from head to toe. Others aren't.
But here's the thing that I would want to say, that I want to make sure that everyone realizes. If you've been involved in an accident, even a small accident, honestly, you should have legal representation for 2 reasons. The first is the medical side. Every experience I've had with an insurance company, they don't want to pay.
No.
They don't want to pay anything.
Anything.
And I have to tell you, The less money you make, possibly the color of your skin, the zip code you live in, of all the stuff no one wants to talk about.
Advantages will be taken.
Absolutely. So the very first thing I would do is I would call to make sure you had the right medical protection, that you had somebody on your side that if they weren't doing it can fight the claim. The second thing is, it goes to then the property damage, the vehicle itself. Did you get a fair, amount of money for the repairs? Did you get the diminished value we talked about on the show? If it was a total, how much did you get? So often we think that we don't want to make trouble. Right? And we give up our rights.
Right. And that's what I was saying. I think, and sometimes you really have to break things down, because when you're in a professional position, the words that you say, you already know what they mean and how people should react to them.
Real quick before we go to the break, though, if somebody is sitting at home and has had an accident, they want to call you, because we'll come back and we'll dig in more. How do they reach you?
You can reach me at 404-303-8400. That's 404-303-8400. Just dial 1 and you'll instantly be connected to my intake department, where we can give you a free consultation to tell you if you have a case and how much your case is worth and how we can help you.
And that at no cost.
No cost at all. Absolutely free.
That's the other big deal. I mean, to know that you can make the call and then it doesn't cost you anything to make the call.
Because let me ask you a question. The average guy in the street, does he have an attorney in his Rolodex?
No.
Right? So who do they call? The thing that breaks my heart is so many people are screwed. I mean, so many people are just shortchanged if you don't have representation. It's not in the insurance company's interest to make you whole. It's not in their interest to make you feel good. It's in their interest to work the business and save their money. And it really is in his interest to try to get you as much as possible or save you the medical fees. And when we're talking brain injuries, you're talking about life-changing events.
Oh my goodness.
You are. It is very, very scary, and I'm passionate about helping injured people, you can probably tell. And they only get one bite at the apple. You only get one chance to try to compensate yourself for all of your future medical expenses, all of your future income benefits, your pain and suffering. If you have a brain injury, it may be home care.
We'll be
you
back.
only get one chance.